Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Chuck, Dead But Not at Rest by Pathogenic. We have a music video here. I'm going to pull up a YouTube, see what's going on with Pathogenic in, I don't even know what kind of music we're in store for, so let's jump right in. Ooh, nice bass presence, kind of folky. Yeah, beautiful. I'll take 5 minutes of this. A little bit of darkness there. Oh, what? So neoclassical death metal. It's delayed just a little bit. Oh, this section's wild. Oh, lots of tension. The high-end arpeggiation, the low-end arpeggiation. Very fun. Separate movement, too. The drum fill introducing a new time feel, which became the new tempo. A lot of time stuff in here, actually. That is precise. Set your eyes mad. You say nothing. It eats you from the inside out. Your soul decays. Your light darkened. Your self-dissolving now. Right into the voice of the voice. To exist. love these neoclassical sections. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's the same lick from the beginning of the track too. Dang. I don't know about Spotify numbers. This came out, well, the video launched October of 2023, 2.5 years old now. This band only has 850 subscribers on YouTube. Y'all gotta help me. We gotta bump that up. This band needs to get heard. I'm on board for a lot of it. I really am. Y'all know I've talked about in the past, the Human Abstract is one of my favorite bands. They put out 3 killer albums, all of them totally different. One metalcore, one progressive rock, one death metal, progressive death metal, and then they just left. Every single album had a different lineup, different vibe, different feel. Love them all. Perfect band run. And I've been trying to find stuff like them for a long time. Stuff kind of scratches the itch, but never completely. So much of this track reminds me of what they did with their final album, Digital Veil. It is this neoclassical death metal, a lot of arpeggiation, a lot of specific harmonic feels that aren't necessarily metal coated. We have plenty of dual layered vocal elements. I wish there were some cleans in here, but I will take the layered harshes. Lots of counterpoint between the guitars, lead bass lines that aren't just playing pedal tone or playing the same thing the guitars are. They're actually contributing to the song in their own way, sometimes even playing counterpoint to the guitars. There's a parallel inverted movement where the guitars will rise and fall as they're arpeggiating or playing their melodies in opposing directions. The drum work in here is both melodic in that the drum patterns are so long that it's tough to hear the patterns to it all, that it feels like it's just constantly linearly evolving. But there are larger patterns at play too, and it still keeps the beat through all of this. This is all how I would explain one of my favorite albums of all time. And then this comes along and it captures a lot of those same qualities. I'm mostly sold. Like I said, I love my clean vocals. I'm not a real big fan of growls in general. Y'all know that. Pathogenic, if you're watching this is your first time, I'm not a big growl fan. I put up with them. I like them as contrast to cleans. We just don't get any in here, which is fine. It's not the kind of music they want to make. But I mean, at the end of the day, like 70%, the entire opening of this track was gorgeous. I love this. I have to dive into more. Today, this is the special selection, right? This is my last thing I have to record today. I will probably dive into some Pathogenic today and see what's going on, because this was just phenomenal. I suppose let's start at the beginning. We kick off with some acoustic guitar. Originally one, and then another, and then the bass. These all build out what is interestingly starting off in a sort of folk style of music. I honestly thought we were in store for just some beautiful acoustic guitar folk music. I would have loved that. That, of course, is not where the song ended up going. But it does start there. We don't really hear too much of this folk side continue on anywhere else in the track. But what I do find interesting is that this even evolves itself a little bit, shifting into romantic era style classical guitar playing. We see a shift harmonically, not so much melodically. I think that the general process in how the melody is written is consistent. It's just the note choices have changed to shift from the chord progressions favored by one style of music into another. From here, though, We explore this for a few bars. We have a second guitar come in and we shift over to Baroque harmonies. This was the first mention in the music, a musical mention where I was like, okay, we're definitely exploring some classical sounds. Honestly, Romantic era is definitely an era of classical music, but shifting into Baroque is that traditional classical sound that most people associate with classical music. And from here, we began to introduce some metal ideas. The electric guitar comes in. The drums have been playing a little bit at this point, mostly melodic drumming across the toms. As the electric guitar comes in, though, we push into a mashing of Baroque and metal ideas, creating this neoclassical metal that dominates the majority of this track. It is a fun little evolution that occurs over 30 or 40 seconds and is rather quick. It's a blink and you'll miss it progression, but it is certainly there, and I found that to be interesting because it is incredibly smooth. It's little hints of things, like having a delicious soup and picking up on slight spices. Nothing that dominates the sound or the meal, but certainly if you're paying attention, specifically looking for it, you will find these little ingredients within all of it. I wouldn't be surprised if most people listened to the beginning and felt it as that classical intro. I think a good majority of it is classical inspired, but it has these little touches everywhere too. And the evolution from, I believe, guitar and bass into dual guitar and bass into the drums including in there, and then the drums evolving from something a little sparser and melodic into a big metal idea with the electric guitar coming in is just, it's so smooth. It's so well done. From this point on, though, it's pretty much pedal to the metal. We're just going heavy, introducing that neoclassical sound. We stick with it. We have a guitar over here that is just linear melody. I don't think that there is a riff in here at all, at least not a typical looped riff. I think it is fully linear. We have a guitar over here that is kind of threading the needle between being harmony and melody. It is certainly not just strumming chords. It's doing a lot of chord shaping and arpeggiation, but it is on the lower end pitch-wise and is definitely not taking any of the attention away from this guitar over here, which is leading. The drummer is going wild. It is somehow balancing this idea between being the metronome of locking into these core beats so that the song has a heartbeat to it, a core pulse, but it is also a massive drum fill across like 2 bars or something like that. It is just maybe even more than that. Maybe it is 4 bars. It just felt like it kept going. The bassist is just bassing, dude. There's so many notes coming out of there. Some of it feels like chord shaping. Other times it's just melodic. I don't know. The bass bounces around a lot on this track, and it always feels so natural, even if I can't place it into a specific role. The bass is quite a bit of a jack of all trades in that situation, where sometimes they are just rhythmic, sometimes they are melodic, sometimes they are harmonic, and it's not a case of, well, this is the verse, so I'm going to play a melody, and this is the chorus, so I'm just going to play pedal tone, or something like that. It's just a constantly evolving dynamic role switching that the bassist does. Very cool stuff. The contrast to this, though, is a more traditional death metal sound that we do hear quite a bit of in this track. I think it works as contrast. We kind of ditch some of the classical ideas harmonically. We move away from some of the more flexible, or what's a better word for it, dynamic riff writing, and we focus on pedal chords. We focus on rule of cool style. It doesn't need to be technically impressive from a performance or a compositional element. It just needs to sound cool. And sometimes that means just hanging on to a certain note for a while. A lot of death metal riffs are based around pedal tones or open chords, open strings, I guess, technically. And they sound sick, even if they're not quite as impressive. Sometimes we lean into that on this track. And this song kind of bounces back and forth between those. There's probably about a 50-50 chance, 50-50 division on this track on whether we get neoclassical metal or traditional death metal. Although I guess it is a little bit, is it tech death? I don't know. Some of the riffs are still fast and technical, so maybe it is technical death metal. Either way, it certainly loses the classical composition component and focuses entirely on more metal tropes and ideas rather than classical tropes and ideas. I think this is great. Contrast is always a good thing, and I don't think they ever rely on one or the other too long in a way that kind of slows the track down or has any sort of pacing issues brought about. There's always an idea of what is on the horizon and how are we going to get there. And through that lens, not only do we have this nice pairing of these two sounds, but there's also some incredible transitions here. Despite it being death metal, which to me is one of those genres that is just full of harsh transitions, they make sense here. Yes, sometimes we do just have hard stops jumping from one idea to the next, but something helps alleviate the harshness. Whether it is a drum fill, introducing a new time feel that we're going into, because there's a lot of time stuff happening around the midpoint of this track. Or it's a harmonic idea that helps take us into the next concept. We might be making some drastic jumps from one section to the next, but there is some accommodation given to the listener to prepare them for what comes next. And I think on the whole, while still keeping that death metal edge, it still finds a way to create some smoothness in its pacing and its flow from getting from one idea to the next. Throughout this whole 5-minute run, everything just feels natural. Like it's designed to go to that next section, even if that next section is a wild leap harmonically or atmospherically or aggressionally. That's not a word. There is a lot of time stuff in here though, and I was trying to keep up with all of it in the middle of this track where it was the most dense, and I could not. The drummer did a phenomenal job of trying to keep everything tied together somehow. There's some speeding up, there's some slowing down, there's a shift to, I think it's like a 3-against-2 tempo reduction. It was wild. It wasn't exactly halftime, but I don't know. Just a nice, solid tempo shift, I suppose. Strong enough to feel, but not a specific, I guess 3-against-2 is a specific interval. Regardless, I immediately felt it. But the thing is, too, is that after we jumped down to it, we also had a decreasing, a retardando in there, too, just for a moment. A couple of bars, maybe four had been too much, probably about 2 bars. But then moving out of that into an accelerando to gradually reduce and then gradually rise back up, accelerating. So there's a lot of cool things in there. Death metal tends to play around with immediate tempo shifts. This bar was at 90, for instance, and this bar will be at 120. You don't see gradual tempo movement too often in metal as a whole, honestly. So seeing the retardando and the accelerando in here was a bit of a treat, but hearing it back to back with an immediate tempo change was pretty cool too, using all of the tools they have at their disposal compositionally. There's also a general, I believe, 12/8 time signature going on here. So much of the song can be felt in 3, and I think 3 is the dominant pulse. It's what I conducted most while I was listening to this, but there's also a strong 4 in here as well. And usually when you can find a 3 and a 4 simultaneously, it's easiest to write that in notation, at least, as 12/8, as that is, it's a time signature that makes the emphasis points in 4 and in 3 easiest to convey simultaneously. Whereas if you chose to write in 4/4 or 3/4, it's going to get a little visually messy, harder to write. The problem with 12/8 though is that it's a longer bar. You have less space between straight lines that is going to differentiate it. It's just something about blocking smaller groups makes it easier to follow, especially if you're sight reading. So having longer bars kind of makes it difficult to get through that way as well too. It's just everything has its pros and cons. I would probably write this in 12/8 though, just because both seem to be dominant simultaneously. And that sort of polyrhythmic approach of emphasizing both 3-beat and 4-beat phrases simultaneously is fairly present throughout this, and it adds just another layer to this track that is pretty neat. And when you pair that with the shifting cadences of this track and the shifting tempos, both gradually and immediate, you end up with a track that feels very technical from a temporal standpoint. I think I've touched on everything. The guitars are excellent. The bass is excellent. The drums are excellent. The composition is sick. The harmonic properties are awesome. The rhythmic properties are crazy. I haven't really said much about the vocalist. I will say that they are a strong vocalist. Both the higher fries, I don't think they're fries, I think they're higher false chords, and the lower false chords are both well done. Again, it's not really my cup of tea. I prefer a little bit more melody in there. I loved hearing vocals playing along next to neoclassical guitars and just having another vocal melody within all this counterpoint. But again, that's a personal bias. I don't think it would improve the song objectively. It would just make it better for my ears. But I do think that the vocalist is a solid addition to this. There's nothing I can hear in there that would make me think that I would want better or more vocals in any capacity. They are well done. They're powerful. They've got grit behind them. And the stacks sound sick. So, yeah, let's kick off some lyrics here. We have a song where our narrator talks about someone who is just utterly empty, devoid of anything other than maybe some sort of hatred. It talks about a rot within. The first verse says, "Shovel the dirt onto your eyes. All essence withers away. Years in rot and unmoving. You're dead, but not at rest. Unseen, it crawls into your veins and snuffed out your embers. Since its breath touched yours, you taste nothing else." So it talks about this thing. Metaphorically, we're just going to call it a thing. We'll explore the metaphor later. It works its way into this person and removes everything that they are. It snuffs out their ember, which is their life force, light, fire. These are the kind of things that are usually figuratively spoken about somebody's will or their drive, their passion. Passion is usually fiery. So we've snuffed out their fire from the inside. And it says that since then, your essence withers away. Who you are is gone. You have had years in rot. You are dead, but not at rest. You're dead on the inside, though your body still continues. That's a heavy way to describe someone. There is what I think is a pre-chorus. It says, "Since your eyes met, you see nothing. It eats you from the inside out. Your soul decays, your light darkens, and your self dissolves." Once again, a destruction of the inside. Before we hit the chorus, I want to touch on the next verse. It says, "Your depleted flesh is stitched together from the only scraps you could bear to scavenge for them." This is interesting because everything so far has been a decay of the inside. But this is the outside. The flesh has been depleted. And so you've put yourself back together with scraps. It says, "But you were never complete, never worthy to feel affection until you came to know this name. This will be a place of yours forever. So whatever this entity is, it attacks people who have low self-esteem. It attacks people at their lowest points in general, but certainly people who don't seem to have a type of love for themselves. The chorus says, glide into the voices. It's an antidote to existence, pretending to be alive. You're dead, but not at rest. So not only does this latch on to people at their lowest, but it also describes itself as an antidote to existence. Maybe if existence isn't good, maybe if you're not having a good life and you have that mix of low self-esteem, this is something that's going to latch onto you and decay, destroy you from the inside. So what are we talking about here? It could be a few things. Depression is certainly something that comes to mind. But it could also be a sort of negativity. It could be general hatred. While it does seem to snuff out, it doesn't say it snuffs out a desire to live, though. So I don't know if depression is 100% what it could be going for, but it could also be a description of seeing people who are now hollow shells of who they were. In a sense, it could be the animosity of social media. After all, we now know, we have data behind it that says social media has the highest engagement with negativity. And so a lot of people's feeds end up being mostly negative. And then they start repeating these things that they often hear, and it creates a person you might not know anymore. It still looks like them, but they're not acting the way they used to. They're not speaking the way they used to. Their soul has decayed. Their light has darkened. Their self has dissolved. I don't think this is about social media. I don't know if this is about melancholy, if it's about depression. I think it's about anything like this. It's so vague that the thing is this unseen entity that crawls into your veins and removes your identity. It could be a metaphor for a lot of things. This is definitely going to be a set of lyrics where you get out of it what you're going to put into it. Your own lived experiences are going to influence what this entity might mean to you. Really strongly written, though. I was a little worried a couple of stanzas in. I was like, dude, I don't know what's going on here. But after reading it twice, I mean, it made clear sense to me, which is pretty good. I'm certainly better at my lyrical analysis, but I still feel like it's my weak point when I talk about music. And this came across very clearly to me. So obviously something was done right in the writing process. It still has its own flavor, its own style. I don't feel like it was dumbed down to make it accessible, but it still is accessible nonetheless. These are my thoughts anyways on, what is this band called? Pathogenic. Dead but not at rest. I did look up, by the way, they have a Bandcamp. You can go check it out. This single was released in 2023, it looks like, but the album that it appears on was released in October of last year. Let me double check that. Oh, sorry, February of last year. I only read that 5 minutes ago. Why couldn't I remember that? February 2025. So if you're interested, more of this exists. They also have at least one album that predates this that they released in September 2019 called Pathogenic, self-titled. This one's called Crowned in Corpses. So I'm going to be checking out more of them. If you enjoyed this, you should probably check out more of them as well. Despite this being a special selection, I'm still going to put links to their stuff in the description, given that they are a smaller band. That way, if you're interested in checking out more from them, if you want to buy some CDs or pick up some merch or connect with them on social media, I'm going to reduce the friction on that. You'll find a link in the description. You can get there immediately. Don't even have to search for it yourself. I think I already said these are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Put them down into the comment section below. Anything you'd like to add on to this, anything you'd like to correct me on if I misspoke. If you have your own perspective or opinion, what did the lyrics mean to you in this track? You can put all that down there in the comment section below. In the description box, there'll be a link to Linktree. Here you can find my stuff, but of course, I'm going to put their stuff in there as well. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you head on over to any of their social medias. Like, thumbs up, stars, hearts, whatever the metric is over there. Show them some love from this community. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.